So the next topic would be the centroid of plane areas. So since we know now how to solve for the area of different bounded regions, so again as a recap, so there are two methods. So one will be the vertical strip, then the other one would be the horizontal strip. And again, as per formula, this is y top minus y bottom dx from x1 to x2. Then the other one is x right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So again, we go back to rectangular coordinate system. So the particular topic on polar equation is you can isolate that one. But for the centroid of plane areas is we go back to the concept of the vertical and horizontal strip. So I think in this topic, it's pretty much the same since um, you still be solving the area. So I think what is new here is you just have to locate the centroid of the bounded region. So I think that's just an additional task in this topic. Okay, so going towards the concept of the centroid of an area, it's actually coming from the center of gravity. So I think you all know this from physics. So in solving for the centroid of an area, it is just the same as solving for the center of gravity of a body. So we copy the concept of the formula for the center of gravity and use it in the formula for the centroid of an area. This concept is called the first moment of an area. So moment means torque in physics. It's just a moment arm multiplied by the force. So perpendicular distance multiplied by the force. So it creates a perpendicular, let's say this one is the distance and this one is the weight. So it creates a perpendicular angle between the two components. So this is the concept behind the center of gravity of a body. So as you notice, if we want to clearly define the presented formula, so this one is the summation moments with respect to y. That's why it's the sigma notation, m and then y, summation of moments y, and then this one is the formula presented. So on the left hand side, that's bar x. Bar x is the location of the center of gravity with respect to the x-axis. And then w is the total weight. So on the right side, it's the summation of x times delta w, or in integral symbol, that's the integral of x differential weight. So to clearly understand the presented formula, so the left hand side is the total aspect of the body, meaning that the totality of the body. On the right hand side, this is the sum of the individual components. So why do I want to define this one? So later on when we go to the area, it's the same concept. Total is equal to the sum of individual components. Okay, and the concept is the same with bar y, but it's just in the y direction. So to clearly define this one, or to clearly understand this one better, so try imagining a square. And let's say the center of gravity is nastunga, di ba? So this one is defined by bar x and bar y. So bar x and then bar y. So of course we know the different centroids of known polygons, diba, such as rectangle, square, because it's just at the center of it's at the center of the figure, diba? But for irregular shape materials, probably you need the integral calculus to solve the specific center of gravity since the shape is irregular, or probably later on when you try to solve for the the composite figures. So this one is also important, especially when you go to your higher subjects such as theory of structures and steel and concrete design. So let's say the presented figure is the total or the totality of the equation. That's on the left side. Now on the right side is, since it's the summation of individual components, so let's say we break the square into different components. So into smaller squares, diba? So what the formula is trying to say is that the sum of individual components, meaning in these smaller squares, na siya yung mga respective nga centroid as well. And then you sum it up all according to their centroids as well, centroid and its corresponding weight. So kanang mga gagmay nga weight is if you sum all the small squares, it's just equal to the total um, square nga gi-represent. So that's how you want to see the formula. And again, this will be important once we go to the formula for the area because it is just similar. So instead of weight, we just change the weight into an area. Okay, so these are some properties of centroids. Okay, so in number 3, so notice that on the left hand side it's representing the whole area. And then on the right hand side of the equation, you can see that it's the sum of different components of an area, diba? So sum of individual components. And then for the formula for the centroid of an area, so again, instead of W, so we try to change, we borrow the formula or the concept coming from center of gravity, and we change it into a centroid of an area by changing W into area. So notice in the formula presented here that it's now area instead of W. And the right hand side is now the integral of x dA, differential area, and then y, and then differential area. Okay, so the formula in its final form, so the right hand side is x sub c, meaning that's the centroid of your vertical or horizontal strip later on. So if you're looking at the figure, so notice that this one is our differential area. And of course, let's say this differential area has also its own centroid. Okay, so that's why going to that centroid, going to that particular individual component, that's the x sub c and the y sub c. That's why it's on the right side. And of course, we only try to represent it on one particular area because later on we'll be using vertical and horizontal strips since it will represent the entire area or the entire bounded area. So it's either vertical strip or horizontal strip ang inyong gamiton later on. Okay, so you can just memorize this formula. Par x times the total area is equal to the integral of x sub c times the differential area. And then the other one is the same, but it's in the y counterpart. Okay, so let's now solve some examples. So to start off, again, during the exam, you need to be able to know how to graph your equations because if the graph just magically appeared in the problem, so I won't be giving credit to your answer, even though that your answer is correct, but the graph magically appeared in your paper without any basis or any kind of solution supporting your graph. So it means that you copied it from the internet. So again, you need to manually draw your graph. So by manual, it means that you have to solve it first, or you have to solve different points from your graph before creating it. So di lang kayo ni magically appear, di ba? So of course, aside from graphing your equations, you also need to know how to get the points of intersection. So again, in the problems that I'm going to present, I just presented the graph directly because again, the topic is not about graphing equations, but it's about centroid. That's why I just want to highlight how you're going to solve for the centroid instead of doing away with the graphing, which takes a lot of time. Okay, so again, you need to know how to graph, you need how to determine the points of intersection because especially the points of intersection because those are important in getting the limits of integration. Okay, so this one is -4, then the other one is negative, it's just 2. Okay,
Sir, I
question?
have a question, sir.
Hmm.
What do you need as proof para sa contour? Let's say you're graphing a parabola. Do we just get the kwan lang, show the HK and then reduce the equation to standard form?
Oh, mga inana.
That's it, yes, sir.
Like,
Okay, sir.
okay, I think especially for the parabola, hyperbola, because they have different components, diba? You need to solve for the vertex, and then, of course, cunning line has many formats such as slope-intercept form, two-intercept form, um, two-point form, di ba? So daghan siya og mga format for curves, daghan pa siya og format, especially if it's presented in general form. So you don't know what particular kind of curve the equation is presenting. So you need to convert it into standard form and then look for the vertex, look for the center of, especially for circles, di ba? So dapat kibaw mo sa ang center sa circle, na kibaw mo sa standard formula sa circle, sa parabola, hyperbola, standard equation, general equation, and so mana
Okay,
siya
sir.
inyong
Thank you.
kanon. Okay, so this one is 8 and 8. Okay, so I presented here a vertical strip because if you're going to use a horizontal strip, so notice that at the bottom part of the bounded region, so it's the right hand side would be um, red graph and then the left side of the horizontal graph would be red also. So dili siya consistent, diba? Unlike the vertical strip, So, bisag asa na ko siya ibutang sa bounded region, it's always that the top and the bottom part of the vertical strip is always the blue and the red graph. So it's consistent compared with the horizontal strip. Okay, so after graphing, the first thing that you need to do is to solve for the area. So again, since we are using a vertical strip, so the formula would be y top minus y bottom. Okay, so again, we always go back to the area, diba? So kailangan ng area in solving for the centroid. Okay, so again, the top portion of the graph is the blue graph. So again, it's already represented here. And this is x over 2 plus 4, and then minus y bottom, which is the one above the red graph, which is x squared over 8. And then, so again, I like to put parentheses and brackets so that I can clearly isolate my figures, I mean my parameters, diba? So kibaw ko ini-trace na ko sa akong solution, kibaw ko nga kani siya y top day, kani siya kay y bottom na. So dili ko maglibog, inigsuwat ako sa ako ang mga solution. So since we are in the vertical strip, the limit should be in x-axis because also we are integrating with respect to x. So dapat x direction tatanan. So that would be from -4 going to 8. And then you now solve for the area using your calculator.
36, sir.
And this is square units. So don't forget to write square units because again, it's area, diba? So for example, you are solving area sa inyong geometry before. So you always try to put square cm, diba? Or cm squared, mm squared, so on and so forth. So area is 36 square units. So this is not yet the answer, but it's the answer for the area. So this is just the first step in locating the centroid of the bounded region. Okay. So again, as much as possible, um, try to simplify the equations so that you can also help your calculator in solving for the answer in a faster pace. So if it's not um, simplified, so probably it will take a bit longer for the calculator to give you the answer. Okay, so next would be, so of course, after solving for the area, so let's write the area here. So area would be equal to 36 square units. So the next part would be solving for bar x and bar y. So of course we solve bar x first because in the order in the alphabet, so x comes first, diba? X, y, z. So we solve first for bar x. So again, if you remember the formula, bar x, so again the total is equal to the sum of the individual components. So x sub c and then differential area. So if you notice the differential area, it is referring to the particular strip you are using. So since this one is the differential area, so since it's a rectangle, that would be length times width, diba? So, or para di mo magsigi kuan, magsigi o tawag na, determine sa formula. So just copy the formula again. So bar x times area And again, since we are looking for the area again, but this time for the strip, so x sub c would be the location of the centroid of the vertical strip, and then multiplied by the area, diba? So y top minus y bottom, that would be the length, and then the width would be differential x, diba? So mura na nag-solve balik og area, but this time naripakapin na x sub c. Okay, so mura na siya. So again, from x1 to x2. So I think that's the new part in this equation. So first you solve for the area, and then in the solving for bar x and bar y, so you kind of solve again the area. Murag ang formula murag the same as the area, but you have an added variable which is the location of the particular strip you're using. So x sub c and then y sub c. So murag mura na siya ng napuno, di ba? So notice here x sub c. So murag mo siya napuno sa inyong equation. So again, since we know a, so a will go in this um, area here. And again, since we are solving for x sub bar x, so we have a known value for a. We know we have a known value for y top and y bottom, and also for x1 and x2. But we don't know the value for x sub c. Now, in locating the value for x sub c, so you just have to locate the centroid of your differential area. Diba? So again, in the formula, sum of individual components. So the centroid in terms of x of the differential area. So this one is just pretty simple because going towards the centroid, since you're not touching any graph, diba? But going towards the centroid in the x-axis, since you're not touching any graph, so meaning x sub c is just equal to x units. So again, if you try to draw a line from the y-axis going towards the centroid, since it's not touching any graph such as the blue or the red graph, so meaning it is just x units directly. Diba?
Yes, sir.
So marag ditso na siya ang kuan. So x sub c is just equal to x. So the only unknown left is bar x. So we can now solve bar x. So bar x times 36 is equal to, so again, bar x, x sub c is just x, and then multiplied by y top minus y bottom. So x over 2 plus 4, then minus x squared over 8 dx. So from negative 4 going towards 8. So you solve first for the right hand side using your calculator, and then just divide it by 36 afterwards.
2, sir.
So this is 2 units. So don't forget to write the unit, diba? So this is bar x.
Dili na siya square, sir.
Dili because it's distance, diba? Distance going towards the centroid.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, always na yung unit, sir.
Ang
Ang unit niya, sir, ba unit na verme? Or na instances nga lahi? Okay.
unit na dyan siya kay since we are using the rectangular coordinate system. So now 1 unit, 2 units, and
Okay, sir. Thank you.
so unless siguro the problem later on in your exam will represent a real life problem. Like, for example, ang circle, let's say katong screw or katong screw head is representing this equation of the circle, ana. So, magdepende na sa problem later on sa inyong exam. Pero I doubt nga na magawas nga inana kay usually kuan jud siya kanang mga inanira nga examples ang magawas yun. Okay, so this is the answer. So again, try to simplify it. So pwede sa dili nyo i-simplify, but mulagi, the downside of it would be the calculator will have a bit of a time in giving you the answer, especially if it's dealing with square roots, kanang radical expressions. So muna siya. Okay, so next would be bar y. So bar y and then times the area. So again, total is equal to the individual components. So again, since we are using the vertical strip, we are still using the same equation. So y sub c, and then again length times width, diba? Y top minus y bottom differential x, and then from x1 to x2. Okay, so again, locate the centroid again of your vertical strip. Okay. So again, we have the value for the area, that's 36. You also have value for x sub 2, x sub 1. You also have a value for y top and y bottom. But we don't have value for y sub c. Okay, so in solving for y sub c, so this is now a bit different with the x sub c. So ganina directly to x sub c, diba? So we're not touching any graph. This is x sub c. But for y sub c, so notice that we touched the red graph before going towards the centroid of the differential area. So how are we going to do this? So I think we have to go to a very basic concept. So if you try to remember your number line, so let's say this one is 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. But so let's say from 0 to 4, what would be the center of it? 2, diba? And I think you have a formula for this one during your basic algebra or geometry. So in the number line, so if you want to look for the midpoint, so we try to use the midpoint formula, diba, which is in the format of x sub 1 plus x sub 2 all over 2, diba? Averaging ayang style. That's how we get the midpoint. So this one is just like a midpoint, diba? Midpoint between the two vertical lines. So this one, the top one is touching the blue graph, diba? So if you try to extend the vertical line, so it also touches the blue graph, diba? So this one, the top portion is the blue graph, the bottom part is the red graph. So in between that one is the center of the differential area, diba? So meaning if we try to incorporate the formula for the midpoint theorem, so y sub c is equal to y top plus y bottom divided by 2. Diba? So muna siyang midpoint theorem concept in determining the vertical shape. So again, why we use the concept of the midpoint theorem, because again, if you try to draw a line going towards the center of the differential area, so it touches the presented graph in the figure. Unlike x sub c, so if you just try to draw a straight line, diba? If you just go towards the center of the differential area, it's not touching the blue or the red graph compared with y sub c. Okay, so the formula further simplifies to So this one is now y top minus plus y bottom divided by 2, and then y top minus y bottom dx. Then you can now replace the values. So bar y times 36, and then this one is so y top would be the blue one, x over 2 plus 4 plus y bottom, that would be x squared over 8, then divided by 2, and then y top minus y bottom. So again, this one is a bit longer, di ba? So I just presented it in this manner para inyo makita ang placement sa mga variables. Okay, so right hand side first. So again, if you want to simplify, you may simplify it. If not, so pwede rasad, but it takes a lot of time to give the answer.
3.2 units, sir.
3 point,
2.
so 3.2 units. So actually, this one is the basic way of getting the answer. So again, if you look at this formula here, ano siya? If you try to multiply the formula on the right hand side, so the formula simplifies also into this format. So take 1/2 outside the equation, then you're going to have, then multiply, di ba? Sum and difference of two squares. So this becomes y top squared and then minus y bottom squared from x1 to x2. Diba? So again, if you try to take out 1/2 outside, then you multiply it, the binomial multiplied by this binomial, it gives you a difference of two squares, diba? So so pwede sa rin nyo i-simplify daan if you don't want to be dealing with so much terms later on. Okay, so this would be the concept. Okay, so um, for you to be able to present the final answer, so you can just present the final answer in this manner. So therefore, and then try to create a coordinate system, bar x, bar y is equal to 2 and then 3.2. So pwede sa na siya. Okay, so any questions before we proceed with the next problem?
None, sir.
And so far, sir.
Okay, sige. So next would be this problem. So again, I just presented the graph directly so that we can go to the formulas. So in example number 2, you can also try to solve it using the um, horizontal strip. Okay, it would be the red against the green graph. For the vertical strip, it's consistent because the top and the bottom is purple and then red. So let's show the two methods. So vertical strip first, and then the next one would be horizontal strip. So again, the area, I mean, the graphing would be left to you guys on saan nyo pa graph sa equation, as long as you present it in with basis, di ba? So na siya formula or na siya mga interpretations sa formula such as this one, di ba? Let's say this one. So you know how to interpret this graph. The vertex is at 0, 0. Na. Okay, so points of intersection is at 0 and then 0. So of course, it's not necessarily to show solutions sa inyong points of intersection if it's really obvious na jud kayo, di ba? But if dili siya obvious, of course, you have to show solutions po, di ba? Let's say for example, dire. So we know the y component is 4, but for x, we don't know that it's 4 yet, di ba? Unless you plug in the value of y in the parabola equation. So it's also 4, di ba? 16 is equal to 4x, and then you're going to get 4. So mana siya, okay? So for the area, so area is equal to, again, since we are using a vertical strip, so y top minus y bottom dx from x1 to x2. Okay, and then the area would be equal to, so y top is the purple graph, that would be just 4, and then minus the red graph, which is 2 square root of x, and then dx. So this would be from 0 towards 4. Okay, and then the answer would be again in square units.
$16.3, sir.
16.
16 over 3 rather.
So 16 over 3. So usually, I try to make my area in fraction form first. Okay, since I'll be incorporating the area, the value of the area in another formula, so I want it to be completely whole lang sa. Dili siya katong um, rounded off nga number, di ba? But pwede siya put siya 5.33, but in my case, sa kuha lang pagbuot, so gusto lang ko nga it's 16 over 3 kay para it's not rounded off nga number. Okay, of course, rounding off numbers would also affect the final answer nga value. So of course, very minor lang siguro in terms of decimal places, but again, I want it to be completely whole lang sa on my case. But sa inyo ha, I don't know kung sa inyo ang style po, but again, it will depend on your kuan sad style. But of course, rounding off the area is not a wrong answer also. So you can also use 5.33. Okay, so that would be the area. So 16 over 3 or 5.33. Okay, so next would be bar x. Then area is equal to x sub c times the differential area. So again, differential area would be depending on the strip you are using. So since we are using a vertical strip, that would be y top minus y bottom, and then dx from x1 towards x2. Okay, so again, if vertical strip, so since we're not touching any graph towards the centroid, so it is just x value, di ba? So times 16 over 3, and then equals x, and then this would be 4 minus 2 square root of x dx from 0 to 4. And then you now have bar x in units.
One point two units.
So it's 1.2 units. Okay, and then this would be the answer.
Sir,
Hmm?
for example, sir, ang X sir, na siya mo, mapass through siya ba? Something, unsa man i-do, sir?
It's the same concept gapon as the earlier katong midpoint formula. So kanay mong question would be now applicable in the horizontal strip. So magbali na pud ang kuan, magbali na pud ang ang x o ang y na sad. So ang y sub c would be just y in the horizontal strip, and then x sub c in the horizontal strip would be using the midpoint theorem now. So magbali sila. So later on after this one, you'll see the difference sa formula sa vertical strip o sa horizontal strip. So bar y and then area. So y sub c times the differential area. So bar y times area and then y sub c. Then since we're using vertical strip, y top, y bottom dx from x1 to x2. Okay, so again, y sub c, di ba? If you try to draw the line here towards the centroid, so it touches the red and the blue and the purple graph. So the center between the 2 points would be the midpoint uh, coordinate, di ba? So that's why we use the midpoint. Um, so let's say this one is y bottom, this one is y top. So the midpoint, the center of it would be the midpoint theorem, y top plus y bottom over 2. So I hope you understand the midpoint theorem. 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, diba? Let's say this one is 0 and then 4, then the midpoint is 2, diba? So obviously that would be 4 plus 0 divided by 2. So 4 over 2 is 2, diba? Kaya basin ganahan pa mo proof nga no, basin sayop niya ang midpoint, diba? Okay, so formula is now bar y times the area. Then this one becomes y top plus y bottom over 2, and then y top minus y bottom dx from x1 towards x2. Okay, so later on when you try to review this recording later, so try to use the katong simplified version, katong kaninga version. Katong i-multiply na nga version katong y top squared minus y bottom squared. Kung asay masayon nilang duha, di ba? So we always try to make our lives easier by simplifying stuff rather than plugging in an entire barangay of equations, di ba? Sorry. So let's try to plug in the values now. So this one is 16 over 3, and then from 0 to 4. So sa ako ang part medyo libog ko mudag suwat sa ako ang formulas kay daghang kay parenthesis, but again my purpose of this one is maka-track down ko sa ako ang terms. Especially the placement of the negative values or negative operations. So it's very crucial if you don't have the parentheses, especially if you're plugging in also negative equations. Okay, ma-shift man na ang mga operation signs, di ba? So just to be safe, I want to put parentheses in every term. So of course, if it's a single term, so pwede ra walay parentheses, but if it's a binomial, so kana siguro. And then dx. Then you now have bar y. And then in units.
Sir, is it 3 units, sir?
Oh, it's 3 units. Okay, and then try to again put the answer in this manner. Katong bar x and then bar y would be equal to 1.2 and then 3 as your final answer, since it's asking for the centroid. Okay, so this would be the answer. It's 3 units. Okay, so let's now go to the horizontal strip. So let's try to see a difference in
Can you go back to that last slide?
excuse me.
The last slide, sir, before this.
So wala ko kasabot sa imong gingon.
I think
Last slide,
that's answer
sir.
mo the last slide.
Unsa? Last slide.
Last slide daw, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, oo kadto ko kay namo yung nagstorya lain tao gud.
We proceed, sir.
Okay, so horizontal strip. Okay, so horizontal strip, so that you can see the difference in equations. So again, area first and then x right minus x left, since we are using a horizontal strip, and then from y1 towards y2. Okay, so the first term on the right side, it's y squared over 4. And then the left term would be x equals 0. So it's just 0, diba? And dy from 0 towards 4. So notice that it's a simple equation compared with the vertical strip. It's just a differential, the integral of y squared over 4 dy. Diba? So muna siya inyong tanawon later on when you try to solve your problem. So if you are able to solve it using both methods, such as by meaning both methods is you can solve it using vertical strip and horizontal strip. So I think my tip here would be try to convert the equations in terms of x and in terms of y, and then try to see if kung asa ang masayon i-operate. Diba? So again, kanina, diba? We can also use it using the the vertical strip. So in terms of x variable, This one is, I mean, in y, x ba or y? So, kanina it's y is equal to 2 square root of x, diba? And then the bottom one, I mean, lagi, ang bottom part would be kuan, and then the other one is 4. So, kani siya y squared against 2 square root of x. So, I think mas better siguro ni siya because I'm not going to be dealing with radical expressions, diba? So, kani, the other one is 4. Then the other one is 0, di ba? 0. So mas better niya gamiton ng na 0 compared sa katong manaji values ang iyang graph, di ba? So again, try to make your lives easier by locating simple or simpler methods, di ba? So the area would be still 16 over 3. So again, if you are given the chance to solve it using both methods, so try to choose the easier strip. And I think you can try to determine that one if you try to convert the equation in terms of x and in terms of y. So of course, if the problem is only applicable to one strip, so mapugos yung mag-solve, di ba? As example number 1. Okay, di mo siya pwede horizontal strip ang example number 1. So mapugos mo whatever the equation is being stated on the problem if it's only applicable for vertical strip. But again, for this kind of scenario wherein you're going to be able to use both methods, so try to use the easier strip. And again, you can do that by determining or by converting the equations in terms of x and y and then choose an easier format. Yeah. Ato mo padung, di ba? So, di ba? Walay other term. And then we are not dealing with square root functions. Okay, so let's now solve for bar x. So again, this is the question earlier. What if ang line mo pass through x na pud? X sub c inside, di ba? So, mo pass siya if you are using the horizontal strip. X sub c and then dA. Then this one, bar x times the area is equal to x sub c and then x right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So again, this is the center of the horizontal strip. So notice that going towards the center of the horizontal strip, it now goes through this point here and also this point here. So meaning we use now the midpoint formula.
Midpoint.
Oh, midpoint. Atong midpoint nga atong igamit kanina ba? So x sub c is now x right plus x left all over 2. Ba? So bali na sad siya, di ba? Ganina ang atong y sub c ito ang nigamit sa midpoint formula or midpoint theorem. So karon, since we are now shifting to the horizontal strip, so bali na sad ang x sub c na sad ang mogamit sa inyong midpoint theorem or midpoint formula. So bar x times 16 over 3 is equal to x right plus x left all over 2 and then x right minus x left dy from y1 towards y2. So 16 over 3 and then this one is now. So again, the purpose of me also trying to place it individually so that you can also see it when you try to review the recording. So x right is the red graph, that would be y squared over 4 and then plus 0. So I'll try to write 0 lang yapon so that again you can try to track it down if you try to review this recording. Usually ang pangutana ra ba sa ato ang pag-review, di ba? Asa ni siya gikan, asa ni siya gikan ana. Asa ni gikan ang value. Murag mo man yung pangutana usually when you try to review, especially when you're reviewing materials from your books. Pamutana mo asa ni siya gikan na value, asa ni siya gikan na value. Kaya usually ang books kay dili siya ang uban na shortcut ang uban, di ba? Okay, so this one is also 1 point. Okay. So again, you may try to solve this one using the shortcut version. I mean, it's not really shortcut, but simplified version of the formula. Itong 1/2 and then y top minus y bottom. I mean y to y2. And then this one would be x right squared minus x left squared dy. Okay, so questions? Sige, question.
Sir, we can use the shortcut version in writing our solutions, right, sir? Like,
Oh,
there's
pwede,
no
pwede ra.
problem.
As long as
Okay.
you present it clearly lang.
All right.
Like
Thank you,
like you present the first the equation sa itong shortcut formula, then you write the exact value da yun. Para at least
understood, sir. Thank
sa
you.
ako ang pag-check sa kay dili ko mawa sa akong pag-check kanaging ikuan ako nga ay kibaw siya nga muna siya iyang steps nga gibuhat before arriving at this particular equation ana. Okay, so muna siya inyong i-try to do in your kuan.
Sir, so okay ra dili na mo issue ang pag-convert atong shortcut nga equation gikan sa main one.
Pwede ra guro basta kibaw mas formula na daan kay at least ako minsan nagtudlo inyo ana. Pero if ever siguro nga mo gawas ang answer dito kana siguro medyo mangutana na jud ko ana.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think especially when I try to check your midterm exam, so katong problem sa katong integral of kaninga problem ay ako lang i-next so kaninga problem especially sa inyong midterm exam atong number amit 13 to 14 man siguro niyo nga problem na second cube dx na second x cube dx. So mostly sa inyo ang ni-answer kay nag-answer dyan mo og reduction formula which I did not teach you, di ba? So klaro kay asa ni siya gikan na reduction formula na. So klaro kay asa ni siya gikan. So again, ang katong uban nag-answer using integration by parts. So much appreciated kay nagkuan jud sa klase ba. Pili siya integration by parts. So katong nagamit ang reduction formula, so probably at least mga 3 lines na siguro to ilahang solution. So of course it's still correct, but again, I can't recall I can't recall myself teaching you the reduction formula sa ato ang klase. Ang uban pa jud kay kana dito ra pud ang apply sa formula na without even writing the formula sa reduction formula. So mana I still gave credit to the answer, but dili lang siguro perfect score kay kana murag kibaw ko asa siya gikan, di ba? So murag muna siya akong gikuan sa inyong number kana nga particular item sa inyong exam. So murag wala ko siya gikuan. Wala siya gi perfect score but kana near perfect lang but dili siya perfect. Let's say for example 4 points. So ako lang siyang gi 3 points lang ana. Okay, maluoy sad ta murag kuha na mo score if ako po siya siyang i-wrong, di ba? So, muna siya ako na-observe. And then, I also observed in the midterm exam sa inyong partial fractions, wala mo nag-partial fraction should, but ni appear na dito ang iyahang partial fraction without even going through the process of solving the partial fraction. So murag inana siya nga akong pasabot. Katong 9 to the power x to the power 4 ana. Nya sa baba kay x squared. Nya I think it's double quadratic nga repeated, di ba? Repeated quadratic siya. So ang uban is ni magically appear nila ng formula sa PCAS ana. Nanay mga values tayon. Without even going through the process of determining the constants. But anyway, mana siya. I'll try to reveal the score next week. Okay, so for bar y, now go to bar y. So this is now y sub c. Then bar y times the area, and then using the strip, it's x right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So y sub c, so notice that going towards the center is that it's only y distance, diba? So of course, we don't have to pass through here also. So if you pass here, so ang kaning red nga portion is wa siya kinalaman sa kuan, diba? Wa siya kinalaman sa midpoint sa or sa centroid sa inyohang differential area. So it's still y units gyapon. Okay? So for a while, okay, mag-iungot akong kuan. Magdi na mo work akong kuan. Okay, so bar y and then area. So again, it's still y distance. So in simpler nga explanation, nagkabali ang units sa vertical and horizontal strip. Diba? So if you try to recall the vertical strip, ang midpoint theorem is on y sub c. And then the x unit is just on the x sub c, diba? But on the horizontal strip, the x sub c is now using the midpoint formula or the midpoint theorem. And then y sub c is just simply y variable. So ana siya, di ba? Murag nagkabali sila sa vertical strip. So bar y times 16 over 3, and then from 0 to 4, and then y times x right minus x left. So that would be y squared over 4 minus 0 dy. So notice that it's simple, di ba? 16 over 3, and then you're just going to integrate y cubed over 4 dy, di ba? And then bar y is still 3 units.
3 units, sir.
3 units nga po na siya. So I think the advantage of also in having two methods is that you can verify your answer sa kuan. You can verify your answer sa kaning kuan, sa kaning problem. So if you want to verify your answer, you may also try to use the other strip as well. So final answer would be bar x, bar y is the same as the other one. Okay? So I'm gonna say 3 units. So again, I appreciate those who are really trying to make the solutions complete. So kana lang dili kayo shortcut method ang kuan. Basta mo to ako na-observe sa partial fraction is di magically appeared ang answer, ang partial fraction, sana wala siya niagi yung mga inana. And then, sa mamatoy ako na-observe sa laing problems. Especially for the kuanday, sa katong trigonometric substitution. So, ang uban, wala mag-present og formula, ana. So, they just directly, so for example, ang katong kani, square root of 16 minus x squared. So, nigawas it, so x equals 4 sine theta, ana, di ba? Walay a squared, walay u squared, ana, di ba? Walay formula presented. Kahit lang dito, and then, daghang kay solution, but y triangle, di ba? Y triangle, but correct ang answer, ana, di ba? Kaya wa correct ang answer niya. Yun sa man niya pag-determine sa other components without going through the triangle. Di ba? Murag, madaba siya mental or dili mental math or dili ba siya madag mental math, di ba? So, wala siyang kakong mga questions sa inyong solution. Okay, so mga siya. So I'll try to to give you your scores next week. So I'll try to meet next Thursday gapon so that you'll have time for you to do the assignment. And since we are now in the remaining days of our semester, so probably gamay lang kayang topics atong i-discuss. So I'll just try to see if pila ta ka lecture sessions. And again, this will be your assignment, which I posted already in your Canvas platform, and it will be available this 12 noon. So again, the real dilemma here would be the graphing aspect. So especially for this one, number 2, di ba? So if you try to look number 2, so for example, you're given a triangle with 3 points. Then let's say you're going to use the vertical strip. So you still have to determine the equations here, di ba? Equation of the line here. So yan ang mga dilemma ba? Okay, so to summarize our discussion, so let me write the formulas again in shortcut form. Dili siya shortcut but in collective nga lang akuan. So if you are using the vertical strip, on the left side lang vertical strip, question?
Sir, sa about sa graph, sir, asa na mo ibutang kanang sa graphing paper or mag-provide siya o kanang graphing template?
Kamo rin mag-create sa inyong own graph, like pwede rin sa bond paper, it's not necessarily that it's drawn to scale, but at least the essential parts of your graph is presented in your paper.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So such as the bounded region, the points of intersection. So it's not totally strict that you have to draw it to scale, but at least the important parts of your graph is presented. So I think the same as the ones in the problems nga ito nakita sa itong kuan. Okay, so going back, vertical strip. So bar x. So the formula would be x times y top minus y bottom dx from x1 to x2. And then for bar y, this would be the one that is using the midpoint theorem. So this is now x, y top plus y bottom over 2, and then y top minus y bottom dx from x1 to x2. Or if you want a shortcut, this one is the shortcut version. Y top squared minus y bottom squared dx from x1 to x2. So on the horizontal strip, so notice the difference. So in bar X, this now is the one using the katong midpoint theorem. X right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So again, in its simplest form, this would be 1/2 integral of y1 to y2. And then this one would be x right squared minus x left squared. And then for bar y, this one would be the counterpart of the x bar in the vertical strip, which is the easier version. So this one is just y times x right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So, mga siya, pinaka-shortcut sa tanang shortcut. And of course, ang area would be, ibuan mo sa area, balik-balik man ang area, di ba? Y top minus y bottom. Then this one would be x right minus x left dy from y1 to y2. So, kana mo na siya tanang formula. As long as you know how to use the formula, so why problema, di ba? Because you can use your calculator. Again, the main problem would be the graph itself, especially in the remaining na mga topics, because we're going to graph first and then you're going to revolve it to create a volume, then to create a surface area. So muna siya inyong problems on I think mo dyan siya main problem on the other half, how to graph your equations. Okay, so questions before we leave? Okay, question?
Sir, with regards to graphing, sir ba? Especially sa itong polar, sir, dapat ipakita pa na mo itong angle region, sir, when we graph? Or okay ra ka itong cross na lang?
Pwede ra katong cross, basta ang katong points, ang katong akong i-present sa PowerPoint last meeting is guide lang siya kay para accurate somehow ang kuan ba. But for your case, pwede ra mo pwede ra mo mag kanang x and y ra, and then you try to use a protractor to determine the angles na.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Kay ang purpose ato is to show you the graph naman good na. So at least I showed you the proper way, but in the exam, so there's no proper way naman sa exam good kay you are time bounded by the exam. So probably the x and y coordinates would be sufficient, but of course, you have to highlight the main criteria sa inyong graph, such as the bounded region, the points of intersection, so on and so forth. All right?
Yes, sir.
Sige, so I think if there's no question, that would be it for this meeting. So again, we'll meet again next Thursday, and I'll try to give you your results sa inyong midterm exam.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye and thank you, sir.
Goodbye and thank you, sir.
Sige, enjoy your lunch, everyone.
Thank you, sir.